With only hundredths of a second separating the first few drivers, we should have a cracker of a race on our hands.
Okay, so qualified 8th here at Knockhill in the second qualifying session. I can definitely say the lap I set this time around was at least a second faster than what I'd set previously, and the two Ford Mondeos are on the back row. Anyways, let's move on to the race itself. So, it's time for race 2 here at Knockhill, and red lights are on, and it's go for race 2 here at the Knockhill circuit. It looks as though this will probably more or less be a carbon copy of race 1 the way I see it, as I'm already being pushed out wide there by one of the Hondas, but as is my teammate. I've been forced down to the back of the field now as a result of the contact, and now it is fair to say I am going to have to work my way through the field. Of course, it was nice to know that last time out we did manage to get every car to the finish, as I am now behind Derek Warwick and up into 9th position after being forced off the track at the start of the race, and I'm now behind Tim Harvey in the Peugeot. Of course, I'm pretty sure Patrick Watts is not running inside the points. And I spin again. So this is probably going to take a little bit longer for me to work my way up to the front, but I don't think it really matters too much at this stage, because I'm quite sure I'll find my way up to the front pretty quickly, because this is a track which does benefit the player more than it does the AI. I am clearly outperforming my teammate Kelvin Burt. It's basically been that way since the start of the season. And once again running wide there through the corner as the Honda has now spun himself out. I step on the brakes, cut the corner just because I don't want to spin. Of course, it's very easy to get that corner wrong. And I am now up into 6th position at the end of lap 3. And it does look as though the advantage of Knockhill going to the player is very much on full display here. So, at the end of lap 3, I've now manoeuvred my way from 15th up to 6th in just a matter of 3 laps, and looking to close in on the leading Honda of Thompson, who is also behind the first of the 2 Audis. I think that's Jamie Bintcliffe. Oh, hold on. That was Beeler, who I just overtook there for 5th position. And it looks as though one of the Hondas must be running up front. No, wait, hold on. It's actually one of the Nissans who seems to be running up front, whilst I am basically pulling away with my domination. It is fair to say at this point the car I have is basically a rocket ship in terms of the amount of raw speed I have. Oh, correction, Bintcliffe is actually running in 2nd. I'm pretty sure I saw Beeler earlier on, so it has to be Bintcliffe who is running 2nd here in the Audi. But either way, At the end of the 5th lap, I've now worked my way up into 3rd position. Bintcliffe is going to brake early and let me through. He must know I am the superior car, or I do have the superior car, as I am now at the end of lap 5. I am right behind Menu in the leading Renault. I'm also pretty sure the Swiss is no doubt going to re-evaluate himself as being the clear shoehorn favourite. Oh, is that Plato? Well, I really don't know, to be completely honest. It might be Plato, but it depends on knowing if it's the typical glitch of both Renaults having the same number, that number being 21. But anyway, so at the end of lap 6, I now take the lead here at Knockhill, and this is basically where I am once again going to certify the concrete dominance I have had, even though it is fair to say I am merely just a gaming prodigy at this point. So coming through the hairpin turn once again and completing about 20% of the overall race distance and almost beating my qualifying time there on that lap, which tells me my car has still got plenty left over in the tank. And almost going for a slide there, but able to keep everything under control. As it looks as though I am now pulling away from the rest of the field. Of course, both Knockhill and Snetterton were crucial tracks for me to have in terms of getting myself back up front, because I really had to make sure that whatever did happen... Oh, hi Derek. I got myself up to the front, and I also made sure that I won 4 races in a row. And it looks as though it's pretty much going to be the same again here. Of course, I am lucky to say that both Knockhill and Snetterton were part of the reason why I eventually won the normal championship. It did take a couple of incidents for me to get to that point, but I am hugely glad to say I did manage to score the championship right in the dying moments. Even if I had a spin late on in that second race at Silverstone, I'm still very relieved to say I won the championship by as much as I did. And part of the reason for that is because, well, Menu was never able to work his way up to the lead, which did help me out immensely at the end of the day. But anyways, overlapping my teammates now, Kelvin Burt, as I am coming through to complete nearly a third of the race distance, and making some contact there with the Peugeot of Tim Harvey. Looks as though Calvin probably is going to be running in 9th. This is probably going to be where I start to lap the leaders, as I slid into the tyre barrier there. But luckily for me, at least in this game, hitting the walls does not result in permanent damage unless your car cannot get back up on 4 wheels. I've basically got nothing to worry about here. And since Menu has not been able to get the pole position points, he's ultimately been contradictory in terms of the results he's been scoring up to this point in the season. As we are now on lap 12 here at Knockhill. Looks as though everything on my laptop is running normally. And so we begin our domination. I should also mention that John Cleland technically is a Scotsman, judging by his accent. And I did mention before he was twice a BTCC champion with the Vauxhall team. And of course he was also known for losing the championship in 1992 in probably the most chaotic circumstances imaginable. And many people would also argue it was the BTCC finale of 1992 which more or less certified what was probably the BTCC's greatest era. At least in terms of crashes, it was certainly at its greatest. But either way, the racing in the BTCC today is still quite phenomenal. It's probably some of the best racing you'll see in the world. And it's also fair to say the racing is certainly competitive, from what I've heard. Especially with the cars now being fitted with hybrid systems. I cannot be technical on the BTCC overall, but I have heard the racing product out on track is a competitive one. And another thing I know is that even from watching a couple of races in the last couple of years, if not 2 or 3 races in the last couple of years, I can certainly tell you that BTCC drivers are still quite aggressive in terms of the maneuvers they make. But yeah, they are definitely hard charging and aggressive drivers. I should also mention their most dominant driver in terms of championships, at least their most dominant active driver, Colin Turkington, is also a Scotsman, as of which he does have a total of 4 BTCC championships, which ties him for the record with Andy Rouse for having the most BTCC titles of any driver in the division since its inception in 1958. And it is fair to say the British Touring Car Championship has always had a history of putting on some truly enthralling racing. I can probably guarantee you will be entertained once you see a good race in the BTCC. And I think if there's any racing division that comes even close... Oh, yep. Well, I kinda knew that was coming. I think if there's any racing division that does even come close to the BTCC in terms of exceptional racing, it would probably have to be Australia's V8 Supercars Championship, or as they call it today, just simply Supercars. Because in the land down under, which is what many people refer to Australia as being, Australia, I should mention, has given us many great and emblematic figures over the years. I also figure one of their most well-known figures, obviously, is Mark Webber, because he's competed in numerous different racing divisions, and he is also the 2015 World Endurance Champion, along with two other drivers when he was driving the all-conquering Porsche 919 Hybrid, which to all intents and purposes was basically the dominator before Toyota came along and effectively killed the LMP1 regulations entirely. Which is also the main reason why we now have the LMPH category. It's the successor to LMP1. Basically, all the cars now are hybrids, and already numerous different manufacturers have jumped on board with the idea. I think it would also be pretty cool if Jaguar was able to come back to the World Endurance Championship, because they did of course have a dominant car in the World Sports Car Championship. Models in particular such as the XJR9 and also the XJR14, which I can probably say are two of my personal favourite Group C cars. I also quite like the Porsche 962 as well, in terms of the Group C models that were able to win Le Mans at the time. Even though Jaguar, of course, didn't manage to win the 24 Hours of Le Mans in 1991 because, well, that honour was given to Mazda, which even to this day still remains to be the only car with a rotary powered engine to ultimately win the 24 Hours of Le Mans. But again, because the car itself was literally a beast in terms of the decibels it was giving out, that was basically the reason why they banned it. Because the engine was simply so loud, you would practically need earplugs among earplugs just to cope with the velocity of decibels you were hearing out of that well-designed machine. But anyway, yeah. So, going back to Australia, they have of course given us many emblematic figures. They've also given us the worldwide travel corporation we know today as Qantas. It's also ironically the only travel company to not have any known plane accidents. At least not any official ones. And it is fair to say Qantas has definitely established itself as being one of the world's top flight companies. Well, one of the world's top aviation companies, to be more specific. And my teammate gives me a push. And another notable driver from Australia that many of us know about is, of course, the 6-time IndyCar champion Scott Dixon, who has won in the Indy Racing League 6 times up to this point, and yet he's still searching for his 7th title, which he probably will get sooner or later if he stays in the game long enough. It is fair to say he will certainly be among some of the all-time greats in terms of 7-time champions, such as Lewis Hamilton, Michael Schumacher, Jimmy Johnson, Richard Petty. I could also put Tom Brady on that list, technically, because he's won the Super Bowl 7 times, and most of those coming in recent memory. But still, I think Australia is a phenomenal country to visit. Even though it has lots of bugs that could kill you, I still think Australia probably is one of the best countries in the world to go and visit. Plus, furthermore, I've also heard the residents of Australia are quite phenomenal also. Just to prove a point. Plus the Aussies also do have plenty of well-known YouTubers. But yeah, if I ever do manage to visit Australia, then there's probably a ton of things I'll be wanting to do when I get into the city. Or, to any of you out there who are Americans, you'll probably also know America for giving us Paul Hogan, who is technically recognised for being the guy who played as... oh yeah, it is that glitch. The glitch where both Renaults essentially have the number 22 instead of them having separate numbers. But anyways, many people of course know Paul Hogan for being Michael J. Crocodile Dundee, or just simply Crocodile Dundee, because it is fair to say for a comedy, I've heard the Crocodile Dundee trilogy is quite entertaining to watch, and it's also quite funny, even though I've only watched 2 out of the 3 films, and I'm still yet to watch the 3rd one, even though the first 2 of course were centered around New York, but you know. Paul Hogan of course himself is regarded as being a national hero in Australia, probably a national treasure as well, because he was known for many years as being a chat show host. He's an old man now, but I've heard he is one of Australia's national treasures in terms of how long he's been in show business. And it is fair to say he certainly has the personality of an Aussie. But you know. Yeah, point is, I think Australia is a country that's well worth visiting. Even if it's only for a week or 2 weeks, you could definitely spend some time in Australia and just enjoy a lot of your time in the sun, as long as it's not during the wildfire season. Australia, I should also mention, is one of the hottest countries in the world, and it's also in the southern hemisphere. And a lot of Australia outside of the cities is basically a desert. But you know, I still think it's a country well worth checking out. And I've also got plenty of relatives around my hometown who have been to Australia. Anyways, whilst I've been ranting about, well, whatever, "29 laps are now complete here at Knockhill, and next time around it should be 30. I will only have 5 laps to go at the completion of this one. And whilst I've basically been babbling on about whatever, I can definitely say it's been helping me to get through this race. Of course, the Aussies have also given us the likes of Jamie Whincup, who I think, as far as I know, is a 7-time champion in the V8 Supercars Championship. I should also mention the Australians have one of the greatest racing circuits in the world with Mount Panorama. That's of course being the home of the Bathurst 1000 in the region of New South Wales. And from someone who has driven hundreds of laps around Mount Panorama, I can definitely say it's a phenomenal racetrack. Am I going to beat my qualifying time? Yes, I am, by setting a 49.03. As I now overlap my teammate once again. I think this is probably the second time I've overlapped my teammate now. I have overlapped the entire field in this race. And it does look as though the domination will continue. Unless something very sudden happens in these last 3 laps. But I would honestly doubt that to be the case. I can basically coast home from here the way I see it. So we have just 3 laps to go here at Knockhill. I'm pretty much on cruise control at this stage. I'm also pretty sure this is where I'll be leading by less than 50 points. If not just over 50 points, the way I see it. It looks as though this time around I probably will put one of the runners 2 laps down, but as to which one it is I don't know. It could be either one, but either way, I have asserted myself in the domination chair. Basically establishing myself as being the dominator. I've at least put one of the runners 2 laps down. although I cannot say for sure if I have or haven't put both of them 2 laps down. I also think one of the most well-known Australian figures is no doubt Nicole Kidman. Because for someone who's been in a lot of American films and also has an astonishingly good American accent, as shocking as it might be, Nicole Kidman is Australian. And it is fair to say that she is also one of Hollywood's most well-respected actors. Basically got the same levels of fame as Tom Cruise does. Anyways, I win.
A great result and 15 points to the Volvo protege. Now the race positions.
Yes. That makes things even better for me. Neither Renault finished this race in second. So Thompson takes second ahead of the 2 Renaults, then it was the 2 Audis followed by Tarquini and Leslie. I must have overlapped the field nearly twice, and there's the rest of the finishing order with Derek Warwick finishing just on the cusp of the points. And that's basically gonna put my championship lead even further ahead. Now onto the points. Once it loads.
Now, after 2 great races, let's see the championship table. A big lead for the new Volvo driver then. Surely he can't win the championship in his first season.
Tiff, I probably and most certainly can. If I can remain consistent enough. I am quite sure this will potentially be what clinches me the championship. But anyway, Knockhill is down, and let's now move on to Snetterton for our next 2 races in the championship.